show you how we make some of them. So what we've got here is a stack where I've dragged out the widgets that I've created for the project I'm working on. So my company's primary product is ScreenSteps, and I'm working on a brand new version of our desktop software. And as I got the UI design from our UI designers, I looked at it, and it came right along the same time that LiveCode 8 was starting to when LiveCode 8 was being put out to developers so we could start using it. And my eyes kind of lit up, and I'm like, oh man, I can do all this cool stuff because I can create all the shapes that they're asking me to create. It's going to the controls that I create. What I really love about widgets, because I've been through this on a number of projects, is trying to handle high resolution monitors and displays, right? So, the artwork that we use in our UI components they need to scale on any device, and they've got to look great. I've gone through the process of exporting different sized bitmaps for every button in an app, and for any UI control that might have had shadows or anything like that, and it's a nightmare. It's a waste of time. I mean, it's not a waste of time because you have to do it so that your app looks nice for people on the higher resolution monitors. But it's like, why should I have to do that? And so UI designers in this day and age, they're creating looks that are a lot more flat, and that are made with we need to. They're making designs that are flatter that you can use vector art for, stuff that's just going to scale and look really, really good. So let's get in and look at. I'll show you some of the controls that I've made so far. So obviously, I started using LiveCode 8 when it was brand new. I mean, the engine didn't come with very many widgets. They were all very rudimentary in their early stages. Everyone was still trying to figure out what was going on. So there weren't a lot of pre-existing widgets for me to draw from. And so I had to kind of go in and start creating everything on my own. So the first thing that you'll notice is you see all these icons that you see in these widgets. So here, we've got this little, I'll turn this on so you can see the animation. Like here's a little progress, or busy indicator, and that's animating, and that's going to look. I can scale that, to any. Well, actually, I need to change the property on that. Let's see. I'm going to make that 200, right? So I scale that up to 200, and it still looks great because under the hood, that is just that's just a bunch of it's an SVG path. Right, and so when that gets rendered, it looks really nice. And so you'll see those icons used across a number of these controls. So here you have the plus icon. Here we have the icon of a user. We have a paintbrush. We have a PDF. A general setting. And what LiveCode Builder allows us to do, it allows us to take SVG path data, make it a part of our widget, and then kind of scale it as needed. So for example, I'm going to open up Illustrator here, kind of show you what I did. My designer, he passed me off, I ended up with a Photoshop document, and that Photoshop document had a lot of vector art icons in it that he'd used, and so I just copied those out into an Illustrator document. And let's see, my icon sheet. So I got my icon sheet. Let's go here. So these are all my icons that I can choose from. And now I imagine SVG support will be better in LiveCode Builder in the future. But right now, here's what you have to do is I can select an icon in Illustrator. And if you look in the top left corner here, it says compound path. Okay, so this is a compound path graphic. Sometimes you have to convert that. I forget. I think it's like F8 or something like that. That you can convert your artwork to a compound path because sometimes they're grouped and all this other jazz. But once it's a compound path, you just copy it to the clipboard, and then let's see, where's Adam? And then you paste that into a text editor, and you get this little path variable, this little path data that shows up on the clipboard because Illustrator is copying SVG data to the clipboard. So I can just copy that, and then I can go over to my, see, so what I copied. I copied the paintbrush, okay? And so then I'll double click on my, my widget that I've created, and here we see I have a variable in my widget. So you see this inspector, it displays any variables that I've defined for my widget, so I can change the title. And we'll say this is a paintbrush, and then I'm going to paste in that SVG path data, and I get a paintbrush that appears there. And I can make it a little wider, and then it just shows up. And you know, so while okay, is that the ideal? Am I just pasting full SVG path data in there? No, I'm not. But it gives me a really nice, for me, you know, it's a relatively easy way of getting vector art into a widget and displaying it and making sure it looks great on any platform. Okay. I see there's a couple of questions. I'm just going to go over and somebody just got here late and was asking if these examples are available anywhere. No, these widgets are used in my application. I wrote them specifically for my application. There are some I've made available, and I'll talk about those, and I'll show you where my GitHub repository is, where I put some public widgets. But these widgets, most of them are made for my app. Some of them obviously could be like this tab control and stuff that could be generalized and put out at some point, but I haven't necessarily done that yet. One other question was, do I have any experience using webcode? I do not. I don't know what that is. So back to these widgets. So we've talked about you know, resolution independence and things like that, and using SVG graphics. But let's look at some of the other things here. I want to show you my favorite widget. The first widget, I think this was the first widget. It was one of the first widgets I made. But what it is it's like a graphic object. But all I did was come in and allow you to toggle the borders on and off. This is something I have to do in my apps quite a bit, where I want to show a background graphic and I want borders, but I only need them on the left and right, or I only need it on the top. And I always, previously in LiveCode, I'd have to drag a graphic object on. I'd have to get another that served as the background, and then I'd drag another graphic on. So you know, let's see, we drag this on. I'd have to turn off. You know, set that to 0, and then I would always drag off another rectangle graphic that I would then make 1 pixel high, because if you use a line graphic, you ended up with, it's kind of weird because it was always offset from, you say put this at 0, 0, but it would like appear at 0, 1 or something like that. Anyways, and you'd have to line that up. So you'd have multiple graphics that you were using to create your borders and your background. And in LiveCode Builder, it was really simple for me to go in and create a widget that would just let me set properties. So you know, and so here's the property inspector, or I could open up my, you know, my message box and say, set the show bottom border of selected object. It's true. Oh, did I write it wrong? Show bottom border. Oh, message box. Oh, so let's do of. There we go. And so then it shows right up. Okay. So that was something that solved a problem that I'd had that had always made my life a little bit more difficult. And you know, in half an hour, my life became much easier. You know, I had to use less controls, and it was just simpler. And so I liked that. Some other things here. So that one was really great. Now, you know, here I have like a little tag inspector, right? So I can come in here and I can enter, you know, I can enter a common delimited list of tags, and I have code that will just, you know, draw these little tags for me in a way that my app needs. Here's a widget which ends up being displayed as an icon in a field. In previous versions of LiveCode, I wrote this, you know, I had a whole bunch of, I had icons with bitmap graphics that displayed each of these icons, and then a bunch of text fields, and I'd have to kind of render that out. Now, with a widget, I was able to write this. I'm able to use SVG path data to draw these icons, so this scales really well. This is all one control. You know, there's not 6 or 8 different LiveCode graphics and text fields grouped together. It's just one control that's drawn, and that made my life a lot easier in that part. You know, I wrote a custom slider for my app, you know, a custom segment control, so you can go through and do your, you know, I wanted these. This allows me to choose the arrowheads for the end of a line. You know, the tab control where we've all, you know, a lot of us have had to hack together custom tab controls. You know, this was relatively straightforward to do. Now, I will say this: so LiveCode Builder. When we get into, if I was to open up, let's looking up Atom here and look at some code. Let's open up the rectangle. Okay, so in LiveCode Builder, what you're doing is, so there's an on-paint handler, right? And so really what you're doing is you're telling the engine, you're telling LiveCode Engine, this is what I want you to draw to the screen, okay? This is what I want you to draw to the screen whenever it's requested. And so it's much more efficient than the old way in LiveCode of saying, I need to create this custom control, so I got to, you know, group 8 graphics together and try to, you know, mimic this custom control that doesn't exist. You have a lot of overhead with all those objects. And in LiveCode Builder, I'm just saying, you know, this is what I want you to draw. And so there's some drawing code that you have to learn. So here we say, you know, I'm drawing some code. You have some commands built in, like, you know, start drawing here, move to this point, create an arc, you know, a rounded corner, draw a line, and this is the code that's used for my rectangle. And so there's a little bit of learning curve when you get into learning that, but once you do, it's pretty straightforward, and you know you'll be humming along and creating all sorts of controls. But I will mention that. So once I made this tab control after I'd experimented on a couple different ones and was able to put together relatively straightforward, relatively quickly. And this is the type of control that we as developers can share with one another. So, you know, for me, it's a matter of kind of going through and cleaning it up, but I can make it available on as something that other people can download and install, and we can start sharing these controls that everyone wants and everyone needs, but which just weren't built into the old engine. And then if you don't, you know, if the control doesn't do exactly what you like, you can open up the LiveCode Builder script and tweak it as you need to, and you've got something that works for you in your app. So another cool thing about widgets that I really like, let's take a look at, so this control right here. This control, let me show it to you in context. Where's that window? Here it is. Okay. This is one of the windows I'm working on in my app. Let me make it a little smaller here. That's not finished yet. It's not public yet. But this control is right here, right? It has some text. It has a pull-down menu, and it allows you to take a screenshot. Now, as a widget, this is just one widget. Okay. Let me scoot these over. Okay, so this is just one widget. And depending on where you click on that widget, I send different messages to LiveCode script. Okay, because when you write a widget, you can say, hey, the user clicked. Let's send a message that the developer in LiveCode script can respond to and interact with. So in this case, let's see if I have I have the script right here. You know, I have a mouse up script that gets sent. So if the user clicks anywhere in that icon area, then they're going to capture something. If they click over where the chevron is, over here, then they're going to get a message called show menu at point. So it's going to, I send a message that says, you know what, the user just clicked here. I want a menu to be displayed, and I send the coordinates of the tip of that chevron so that LiveCode script can just pop up a button right at the point. And the user can make a selection, they can change it, and then, you know, so it's a single control because it's easier for me to create, you know, based on what the UI designer did, it was easier to create a single widget, but I can still send different messages based on where the user's clicking on that, and I really like that. And in the end, it's just, like I said, when we're creating widgets, it's one single control. It's not this aggregate of all these other controls. Other interesting things in here, this is a little toolbar, which I like. That's just all one control there that I wrote that serves for, allows me to change icons and labels, and I use that in my preferences. A little checkbox. I like this one. This is a tree control that I use, and I'll show you how these are used in the app in just a moment. And I like this. It's a little. I have a hierarchical tree, right? So trees are hierarchical by nature, right? So I have a tree that, and this is the icon that gets displayed in the tree. So it has some properties. Like, is it open? Okay, well, when it's open, then it gets a little minus icon. If it's not, it's a plus. Does it have children? If it doesn't have children, then it shows up as empty. So I can just set these properties on it when I'm displaying it in a tree, and I get the right icon. And so I love that widgets allow us to define our own properties. Now, in the past, we could use custom properties, but what drives me nuts about custom properties is they break when you use lock messages. And so, but for those of you who are familiar with what lock messages are, what lock messages is and what it does, widgets don't suffer from that problem. This is an object. In LiveCode script, if you try to set that property, it's going to get set regardless of whether or not messages are locked. This is a custom menu that I wrote. You can pop up a widget as a menu, and so wherever it's transparent here around the edges, that ends up being transparent when it shows up in the menu. So you can create some really cool custom menus with widgets that turn out really nicely. And I think that's mainly it. I do like this progress indicator. I use this to show downloads in my app. You can just change the % on it. That's similar to what you see in a lot of the mobile, kind of a mobile progress indicator. And we use that in our app as well. So let me show you some of the context here. I'm going to go through the questions. Just some of the comments that have been made. Colin Holgate mentioned that he just managed to draw something in Flash Pro, export as SVG, and then copy the path data into LiveCode, and it worked. Oh, that's cool. So I imagine Colin was using LiveCode 8 comes with an SVG widget, which I've not used because I have my own. But we worked on the code for that together, and I forget where it is. But anyway, there we are. The one that says SVG. There we are. So I imagine, Colin, you opened up this SVG widget, and you pasted the data that you exported from the SVG that you exported from Flash into this icon path variable, and that would have shown up for you. Let's see. What else do we have here? Okay, someone's asking, they said a few years ago, this is Steven, and he says, a few years ago I tried to use the control scaling functionality in LiveCode and it trashed my app. I had to start from a previous build because it just didn't work. First, do those scaling functions work now? If you know. And second, are widgets a better way to do scalability anyways? Now, Steven, can you clarify a little bit on that question? When you say you're using the control scaling functionality, is that like, are you setting like full screen, or is this the geometry manager? So if you can kind of clarify on that, then I'll answer. I don't think that widgets in and of themselves, if I understand what you're saying, well, I'll wait till you to clarify before I go in there, and then I'll answer that. Martin asks, are you planning to distribute these widgets like tag control or the tab control? Yeah, so I'll show you what I have here. If you guys go to, let's do this. Let's open up a new window. Just go down here. So if you go to GitHub Trevor DeVore, I have LiveCode. Let's see, I think it's LC modules. No, LiveCode extensions. There we go. So it's Trevor DeVore. Paste this into the chat. I don't know if that's clickable or not for you, but this is where I have widgets that I think this is public. Can someone go up there? Let's see, is it public? Where does it tell me? I think I made this one public. Looking. I don't don't even know where to tell if it's public. Let's go back. It should tell me here. Private. Yeah, LiveCode extensions is public. Okay. So this is where I've posted widgets that that you can take a look at, download, do what you want with. I've got the circle progress one, rotating SVG. Rotating SVG is this guy right here, and so that it allows you to animate, and I let you choose from a couple different ones. You got the cog. These are all from Font Awesome, and you'll see these all over on the web. And refresh. So spinner just animates differently, so it rotates the whole thing rather than pulsing, which is what the pulse does. So these are cool. I like the animation. So that one's up there. What else we got? We got a slider. That's this guy right here. Tree toggle, SVG icon, and a URL parser. I think a URL parser is kind of, this was my first attempt at, this is a library. And so it's like getting the base URL. And this was, I translated some, it's from a library I had in LiveCode script because I was experimenting with libraries. And so that's kind of what that is an experiment. But yeah, I can try to get these suckers up there, like the tag one. You know, there's no reason I can't put those up. It's not like they're doing anything. It's not like, you know, they are more general. And so those are ones I can put up there. I'll make a note here. Let me open up reminders and do that right now so we don't forget. So let's see. All right, so we need to post the tags and tabs widgets to repository. All right, a note has been made. But yeah, you can go to that GitHub repository and check stuff out. That's where it'll go. Okay, so what about an interface for panoramic VR images? The interface for something like this sounds doable. What about code to spin images, etc.? Is this something Builder could do? Yes. So Builder should be able to do this. I don't know the answer though, for sure. So what's going to happen? So all the interactions that Builder needs as far as mouse events and stuff like that, being able to load up an image and all that are present. The question is, there are a bunch of math routines built in, and really, you're writing some math routines to do the distortions. You need someone who understands that. So, you might be able to translate. I know there's HTML5 code. Like there's CSS and JavaScript and stuff that you can do this in HTML5. And I've messed around with VR viewers like that. So if someone's familiar with it, they could go in and try to translate that into a widget. That would actually be, I'd really like that. I think that'd be cool because QuickTime VR, you just can't use that anymore. And so that would be something cool to do. That's outside of my pay grade. So somebody else who's much better at that type of math would need to go in and do that. But I would think it would be possible. If you know the math. So sorry I can't give you a better answer than that. But other than buttons, controls, what ways can widgets be applied, invisible as procedures available in other processes? Can widgets change the functionality of LiveCode itself, such as adding functionality to a menu selection? So widgets, so I have a question. It's like, other than buttons and controls, what ways can widgets be applied? Well, widgets are for doing UI. So if you saw at the beginning of the presentation, this is about creating UI elements. A widget isn't going to change the functionality of the engine itself. You're not going to add, it's not going to change how a menu works or something like that, but it's going to be a control that you drag on and do something with. Now a library adds additional functionality to LiveCode, but you're not really going in and changing how LiveCode behaves itself. Now, what will be possible in the future, I can't really say. I don't know for sure, but widgets are just you're creating UI controls that you're going to use in your app, but now you can make calls to lower level libraries that you can kind of bring in, but ultimately the goal is to display something on the screen to the user. And that was for Bruce. Let's see here. So, okay, so Stephen, going back to that question about control scaling, Stephen was asking about the geometry manager. Stephen, I don't ever use the geometry manager. I never have. Um, I've always found that my layouts I always needed the control. It was just much easier to code it for me. Um, it's easier for me to go in and look at the code because the code for me was never overly complex. Um, and for doing resizing of a UI. And so I'd much rather just be able to look at the code and see what the resizing code's supposed to be doing and just kind of handle it manually. Um, how can a widget help dealing with geometry management? Well, with a widget, when you write a widget in LiveCode Builder, so if we take a look at this on paint handler, so this is the rectangle example. When I'm telling LiveCode what to paint, I'm drawing within the rectangle that LiveCode script has defined for that widget. So if in my resize code in LiveCode script I've said this widget is 200 by 200, then when I go to draw, there's a property called my bounds. Okay, my bounds is the rectangle that you're going to draw in, and you're just drawing into that rectangle whatever size that is, and then the engine takes whatever you told it to draw and places it in the rectangle and on your stack where that widget appears. So in that way, it can be helpful because in the past, when I've had more complex custom controls that are groups, you've got all that resize logic that you have to write inside LiveCode script, which I've found it's a little easy. I prefer putting that logic in LiveCode Builder and then just placing and resizing the widgets on the screen, and they just magically do what they're supposed to. So in that way, I think widgets can be a little easier with geometry management. They're also helping with the scaling. Like I said, you're not having to look, you're not having to deal with multiple images. That's less a geometry manager issue though, and more of just your controls are going to look great no matter how big you make them or what type of monitor they're running on. Another question, do you know what, if anything, is planned to avoid 100 different tab widgets, all with tiny variations in functions? Nothing, and I think that's okay. Not everyone's going to post their tab widget up to the store, and if they do, the good ones rise to the top. I mean, Director, if you've used Director in the past, there were always, there were online websites that had tons of I'm forgetting my lingo now, but sprites and stuff that you could use in your projects, and people would rate the best ones and they'd kind of rise to the top, and that's what people ended up using in their Director projects. Same with Flash. Back when I used Flash, that's I think it's great that people can customize stuff however they want, and I think over time the ones that really solve the need for the greatest number of people rise to the top and become popular. I don't know if LiveCode's going to mine the best widgets for inclusion in the base version of LC. That was something else that Paul asked about. I don't know that they'd include them, but it would seem good to focus on them and talk about them in their store and feature them. Well, store might not be the right word, but in the location, in the extension store, though stuff doesn't always cost money there, so you can get free extensions online in the LiveCode store. But I don't know what their plans are there. But what I do think is important is that LiveCode as a company makes it very, very easy for us to share stuff. You can upload extensions now to the store, but it's not complete yet by any means. I have an extension up there, and I don't think I can really do much to modify it or change it. So it's there. I don't have a lot of control over it, but I think it's very important that LiveCode create a great environment for searching, finding, rating these widgets, so that if I'm a new user and I'm coming into, if I'm starting a new LiveCode project, I want to be able to go to that store and find whether they're free, whether they're paid, hopefully a lot of free ones, widgets that let me create the UI I want without a lot of hassle. And widgets do allow you to, if you find a widget that works for you, it's really easy to incorporate into your project. you're not going to accidentally ungroup it and start deleting controls and break it and then call the developer and say, what's wrong? Why did it break? So I do think it's very important that LiveCode put the necessary resources into that. It's public. Okay, so, oh man, there's a whole bunch of questions here. So that's good. I'm going to keep going through these, and then, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pause for a second and go back to showing you some of these in context, and then I'll go back and answer some more questions. So here's some of these widgets in the context of the app, and I'll bring on one other screen here. Okay. So I talked about a tree widget. So watch this interaction here. So this is the tree widget where I can expand and collapse. And I get a little icon. Now here's something else I could do. This particular entry in my tree hasn't been downloaded. I've got the first level of the tree, but not the other. And so you'll see when I click this plus button, there's going to be a little animation, and then you get my little progress busy indicator in there. See that? And so it shows up for the however long it takes to download the data to show the rest of that tree. Then that little, you know, and because it's vector, I could just scale it down to a little tiny size. It looks nice. Lets the user know that something's going on, and I really like that. So here's that tab control. You know, I really like how all the vector art works and looks when you're doing this stuff. And then here's some of the other, you know, you can kind of see in practice how some of these controls work. We got the sliders and all that kind of jazz. The the custom swatches and things like that. So there's, anyways, that's just how some of those controls are being used. See here, I have different icons for each of these buttons, and it all kind of, it comes out quite nicely. All right, so that's how some of those are used. So I'm going to go back to, I need to find my question. Where'd it go? There we are. Okay, so some more questions here. Do LCB libraries, so do LiveCode Builder libraries act the same as standard libraries? How would I create a library widget that says something like draw a rectangle and have a widget know that command is available? So you don't create a library widget. This question is from Scott. You don't create a library widget that says something like draw a rectangle and have a widget that know the command's available. What you do, I'm glad you asked this because I was going to talk about this and hadn't yet. You create a module, Scott. So let me show you some examples. I have a module. So remember, if we go back to our diagram of what modules and libraries and widgets are UI controls. Modules, it's code that you write that can be used by libraries and widgets. So with that in mind, let's go back. And I have a widget, or sorry, a library. Confusing myself now. I have a module. There we are, a module called UI control. And I've defined it. Up here at the top, you say it's module com.livecode.extensions.devore.ui control. And in here are a number of functions that all of my widgets use. Or all my widgets use. And so I adjust colors based on whether or not the widget's enabled. I'll change the alpha of it. I can convert colors to strings and strings to colors. I can fit a string within a rect. So if you have a text label and I want to fit in a rect, it'll fit it in that rect and then add the ellipses if the text doesn't fit. Some other helpers, in here, one that I really like, scale and maintain aspect ratio transform. So this is a handler which will take, it scales, it'll help you scale SVG graphics very nicely so that they look good within a kind of defined size that you want. And so now what I do is after I've created that module, I then open up, let's see, which one have I just started using these modules in my controls. So I think I did it with tag list, theme menu. I think custom option menu uses it. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now what I've done is I've installed that module, UI control, that's installed as part of the modules that LiveCode loads up. And now when I write a custom option menu module, I can say use, here on line 9, com.livecode.extensions.devore.ui control. And so at that point, see, I can now call the scale and maintain aspect ratio transform handler because that's part of my UI control module. So that's how you do that, Scott. You'd write your library, and then you'd have a module with all the helper handlers that you want, and then your widget would say, hey, I need to use this module, and then your widget would have access to all of those handlers. Okay. All right, so. Okay, so there was a question by Martin about, he says there's an extension store in the extensions manager. Will that have third-party developers in it? Yes, I actually, so if you open that up, let's open up the extension store. I have, I posted something up there. It's not the manager, it's, can we get there? Oh, extension store, yeah, okay. So we go to the extension store, see if it loads up. You can get it through the UI, but it's also through, let's just skip that. That doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't always work in the IDE. But if you go to livecode.com and everyone can create apps. Feature exchange. There we are. So I went to LiveCode extensions, and then you'll see the list of extensions that are available in the store. Now, honestly, so this is a link on the website, but it should probably be taken down because it's not really done yet. But this Circle Progress one is one that I uploaded. I created a developer account. You can do that if you log in the back end. You can go through and create a developer account, and then you can upload stuff. But this area is very unfinished, so keep that in mind. But yeah, but third-party developers can upload stuff there. So that's available to, and you can upload something there now if you wanted to. You just go through and sign up. And Peter wants me to remind everyone that you can ask him tech questions on Reddit. So I'm going to post the Reddit URL and post that to everyone. So Peter's answering questions there. And Peter's been great. Peter's a relatively new member of the LiveCode team compared to some of the other engineers, but I think he's made a fantastic effort in sort of an outreach effort and to communicate with developers and find out what we're up to and what we're doing, and he's done a great job of communicating with people, which I personally loved. It's great to have that dialogue with people on the team. So, Martin asked the question. We were looking at this widget right here when I was talking about creating. I send different messages based on the drop-down, whether you click on the chevron or whether you click over the icon itself. He says, how does Builder detect when the mouse is over an element of a widget or the chevron? Now, that is a good question. Now, you got to kind of change your perspective here when you're working with widgets. Is the user's not moving over a control. The user's moving to a point within the widget. So if we open up let's see. Where are we looking at here? Custom option menus, not what we want. Should be, let's see, chevron. Yeah, SVG icon with chevron. So what we need to start thinking about, and so when you're working with widgets, you're kind of caching rectangles on the screen or within your widget that certain clicks should, a click here should do one thing and click there should do something else. And so let's see what we got here. Let me see if I can find the code really quickly. On save, on load, on paint. So it's not on paint that we're going to deal with that. Let's see where let me make sure I'm looking at the right code. This is, so if you ever want to see what widget you have, it says it's the kind. Yeah, SVG icon with chevron. So show menu. Okay, so what I do, so in this example, when you click, I figure, so in this so here I have an M chevron rect. Okay, so what I have, so here's what I do in this example is I have in the widget, I've defined a variable called M chevron rect. Okay, and that's a rectangle. And then what happens is when I go through and draw, so here's my on. Now I've changed how, this is an old code, and I've changed how I do this. And I'll tell you what I do now in a bit. But you see what I do is when I'm drawing, I create a rectangle. I say put rectangle, and I define the rectangle with, that's what those 4 lines of wonderfully readable code are, into the chevron rect. And so that is now a variable that holds the rectangle where the chevron is. Then what happens is on mouse down, I say, if the click position is within the rect, so the click position is how LiveCode Builder lets you determine where someone clicked. If it's in that rect, then I'm going to send out my show menu message. If there's, I might show pop-up a widget, or I might show menu. So that's how I detect, is I checked within the rect. Now, nowadays, what I do in some of these other examples is, I have a handler that says that I kind of calculate bounds. And what I'll do is, for a more complex control where I have multiple elements that I want to deal with, the handler will go through and figure out the rectangles where different things are going to be drawn. And that information is stored in the widget, and then mouse interactions can determine if it's within a certain rectangle in the widget, and then react accordingly. So you got to think of it a little differently, because there aren't controls that exist, but you're creating, you're dealing with rectangles and stuff like that. All right, does a widget have to be on a card? Yeah. So a widget's a control. It's a UI control, so it needs to be placed somewhere, because the idea is it's going to draw something. So it's just like any other LiveCode control, in that, well, the majority of cases, yes, it's going to be on a card. Now, as I said before, you can also design menus. So this widget, you can say, if we look in the dictionary, so I'm in the dictionary, I'm looking at LiveCode script, and we're going to say pop-up widget. Okay, so I can use pop-up widget to display a widget as a menu. Okay, so remember, widget is for UI, and if you're trying to use, if you just want to define a bunch of functions that your app can use, then you're going to create a library. Can a widget be created by script? Okay, so that question I just answered, Matthew clarified right after. He said, can a widget be created by script? Yes, just like you'd create any control. So the thing to remember is a widget is just like a button. It's just like, it is a control to LiveCode, and you can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. So here we have create widget, as widget kind. So your syntax is going to be, if we look down at the example, create widget my nav bar as, and then this is where you use this this identifier. It's they call it the widget kind, and that is unique to every developer. And so it's it's a little longer, but that's how you create unique. That's how you can target a specific widget when you're creating it by script. Okay. So Sandro asks, all controls, can buttons, data grids, etc., will be replaced with a widget? This question is, will they be replaced? I believe so. The controls in LiveCode, the old ones, have served us more or less well for a long time now. A lot of them have been overloaded and do more things than they should, and they are not optimized for specific things. So, the field object is very generalized, and there's some things that you need more control over the text than the field object might give you, and you have menus that these pop-up menus. A button is just way overloaded. I mean, it does checkboxes, it does click buttons, and it does pop-up menus and all that kind of jazz, and it shouldn't. So everything, I think, eventually will be replaced, and you should be using them. That's where I think all the new development resources will be going. Data grid in particular, their LiveCode 8 already supports some sort of like list control. It's not complete yet, but something like that's going in there. I've actually started looking at doing a data grid within as a widget. There's still some things to kind of figure out, but I think the goal is to move everything to a widget. That's my understanding. Can you nest widgets like we did with grouping object? Yes. This is new. This is relatively new, and I have not. That came out, I think, in DP5, where you can nest a widget. So I'm going to switch in the dictionary over to LiveCode Builder, and then we're going to say, I'm going to search on child. So this will give us access to some. You can now place widgets. So so here we go. In LiveCode Builder, this example places a widget inside of this is widget code, and you're placing new widgets within it. And so you can actually nest widgets now. And so I'm very interested in this for a reason. If you look at this UI that I'm doing right now, this is unfinished, and so it's still, there's some parts that are kind of ugly. But take a look at this. So I have these like collapse buttons down here, and you see I have these vertical bars here. These are all individual rows, and I have to kind of do some hacks to get this vertical line to span multiple rows and to make it work well. You can see, you see this background text here. This background that's red, I need that to actually span across multiple rows in my final implementation. With widgets, I could create a widget that is this red background and has this icon, and then I could then nest a text widget, an image widget, a code widget, all that kind of stuff I could nest within it. And because they're children of this red background and icon widget, that background could draw behind them and look great, and I wouldn't have the 32,000 pixel limit that we have with groups right now. And so I could draw nested controls where there's kind of an inheritance from a parent of what your background should look like. So yes, you can do child widgets. It's relatively new, but it opens up some very cool possibilities. Now, I will say the nesting of widgets has to happen from within LiveCode Builder. You're not going to create a widget and drop it onto a card, and then with LiveCode script be able to embed a widget within it. So that you'd embed the widget in LiveCode Builder when you're writing it. Okay, so this is a question. Widgets and libraries are created this is from Matthew. Libraries are created, so widgets and libraries are created in an external text editor, so that they can have whatever license you want, not necessarily the GPL v3 from LiveCode Community, right? I am not going to comment on licensing because that is not an area of my expertise. I assume that because you're creating, I'm not going to say I assume, but I'd ask that on LiveCode Public in the Slack forums and kind of see if someone can respond on that, because I don't know enough to comment on that. I'm not even going to offer an opinion on that. Let's see. So next question. Close to the end here, so we're getting there. Assuming you take, so this is from Bob, assuming you take an LCS library and convert it to an LCB library, what kind of performance increase, decrease do you see in the LCB version of the library? I don't know the answer to that. My understanding is LCB still might be a little slower for, well, let's see. Peter should chime in here, because he's written a JSON LCB library. And so there is an existing LiveCode script JSON library. There is an external, which Monty has written, which parses JSON. And then there's Peter's JSON library in LiveCode Builder, which he's written. And I think it was faster than the LiveCode script, but slower than the external. And the goal is, I'll say, and a lot of optimization still needs to occur. Okay, so Peter just answered in Slack, and he said his JSON library is faster than the LiveCode script library, but only just. My understanding is that LiveCode Builder still has a lot of optimizations that are to be made, but you don't want to optimize for how young LCB is. You don't really want to do too many optimizations yet, but there are plans to optimize in the future. And Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. So but writing libraries, so Peter's mentioned, LCB has a list type, and the lists, having a proper list in LCB is wonderful. You don't have the problems that you do, and trying to create a comma delimited string as a list just doesn't work out well. It works really well in most cases, but then you get into the nuances of you know, what a preceding comma means and what does it mean if you have one item and a comma after. And there's all these little issues, and there's a true list variable type in LiveCode Builder, and it's wonderful. It has all sorts of wonderful syntax around it, and I'm very happy to have it. All right, the Reddit link doesn't seem to work. Okay, I just clicked on it in the window, and this is what popped up. So I'm not sure. Maybe try typing it. Are you able to? I don't know if you're able to click on it, or if you want to kind of type it by hand. But let me. I'll post. Well, the Reddit link is also in Slack, so you can go look there for it if you're having problems. Let's see. In LCB, can you define your own variable types, like objects? This is from Paul. So in addition to list and number and path, can you create your own in a module? I don't think the team has opened that up to us yet. So here's what I think you could go in. Like if you wanted to go in and modify the actual, include something that comes with the engine and gets built with the engine, then I think you could do that. I don't think there's a way to create one in a module and distribute it yet. And actually, I'm positive you can't, because what the team has not opened up to us yet, like if you look, Peter says this is the kind of thing I can answer much more easily in long form. Yeah, sorry, Peter can type up an answer to that, but the short answer is we can't define our own syntax in LCB yet. That's not there. If you go in and you dig around in the files, the LCB files that comes with the engine code in GitHub, you're going to see that there is code for defining, I think it's an MLC extension. But anyways, there's code for defining syntax for how you interact with objects, and that is not generally available to us as developers yet in module form. But my understanding is we're supposed to get that in the future. And then look to Peter for more information on that. That's probably a good thing to actually, that's the type of question you might want to go throw over in the Reddit question and answer and let Peter talk about that. Is there a mouse over equivalent to highlight an element, Martin asks. Well, you have the mouse events that you need. And so if you pop open the dictionary, we'll search on mouse. There's mouse hover. Well, I will say this too. There's some things you'll find in the dictionary that show up for LiveCode Builder in the dictionary, but they aren't necessarily implemented in LiveCode Builder yet. It's like they were supposed to be, but they haven't been yet. And so, but you have mouse enter, right? And you have mouse leave. And so you can definitely do those to do your highlight. And then you can mess around with hover and see what it does. But yeah, you have the mouse events you need to highlight when the mouse enters. And if hover didn't work yet, there's a timer. You could install a timer that said on mouse enter, run this timer, and let's see if the mouse is still there in 1 second. Another question: how do we use widgets to interface with? This is from William. And how do you use widgets to interface with the native mobile functions, such as extending LiveCode and mobile commands? You can't yet. So LiveCode Builder allows you to bind functions in C libraries that exist on the system or in a library that's alongside your widget, and then execute that C code by calling a LiveCode Builder handler. Okay, that you can only do that with C code right now. We can't do that with like Cocoa libraries or Java or other things of that nature. And so for mobile functions, you can't create a library or a module that taps into those Cocoa APIs yet if you're doing iOS. So that is in the pipeline, but it's not here yet. That's the one I don't do mobile development yet. I do very little. It's kind of side projects, but I do a lot on the desktop. I am just dying to get a hold of an engine that will allow us to bind to Cocoa calls and being able to tap into those, because I would love to get rid of all externals. And it'll be like, looking at what you can do already with C libraries, we'll be able to extend our widgets and do a lot of cool things with access to those OS APIs, but that is not there yet. So no Objective-C yet. Can I share links to the JSON libraries? Brian asks. Peter, could you in Slack? Well, let's see. I was going to say you could post it in Slack, but I think it's just on peters.com. Peter B. Let's see here. Let's see, JSON. No, it's not under his personal account. Well, it's actually probably in the LiveCode repository now. Right? LiveCode tree. So it's in the LiveCode one. If you're in Slack, Peter just posted it. And I will paste the URL into here as well. So let's go up a level. And no, so it's in LiveCode. Okay, tree. Where's tree? I don't see tree. Open up Slack on here, so I have the link that I can post for those who are not in Slack. Where do we go? Build widgets? Is that what we're looking for? There we go. Okay, here's a link. So that's a cool piece of code to look at. So it's a good thing to study. Okay. So there's the JSON link for Brian. Okay, Matthew says, let's say you have a widget for a complex text editor. I will stop right there and say you won't yet, because you cannot edit text in widgets yet. That's another one I'm dying for. Just as an example, so here is a widget that I started creating to create a search box, because I want those rounded corners. I want my little magnifying glass to show up, and then when the user starts typing, I want to show a little cancel icon. So I wrote a widget that this does. It has the cancel icon that I can show. It can show a little focus border that's rounded, though it's not just like the OS. I wish I could do that, but I can't do that. There's not a built-in way of just showing what the OS focus border should be just yet. And then I lay a LiveCode field down here in the middle, and as you type in the field, it sets properties on the widget. So, and the field itself doesn't show a focus border. So it's better than I've been able to do in the past, but not exactly what we want. So now back to the question. So let's say I have a widget with a complex text editor. If it's too big for the screen, so half of it is clipped by the window, does LCS pass the information back to LCB so that it knows it maybe doesn't have to draw the information that's in the widget, but not on screen? So LCB knows how big the rect is that it's displaying, and so LCB can look at this widget and say, okay, I've got a widget that's being displayed. It's 100 pixels wide and 200 pixels high, and then your LCB code is responsible for, there's going to be a scroll property if you have text that you're scrolling, and it's going to be responsible for laying out the text in the right way. And drawing the text properly. So that's you have everything you need to know in LCB, because you know what the rect is, and the scroll, where the scroll of your text field is going to be a property of your widget. So I haven't had to do anything like that, so I can't say like how efficient it is. Like I said, you can't edit text yet, but you can display text. So we've still got some stuff that needs to be added before you'll be able to tackle that problem. Okay. So I have a question from Thorkild. He says, will Bluetooth be an option in LiveCode? That's not a question that I can answer. I would go and ask Peter that on Reddit, or within, and maybe that's a question that should be asked in Slack somewhere, just in the general discussion. Maybe one of the engineers can comment on that. So I don't know the answer to that one. All right, and with that, I am through all the questions that have shown up in my GoToWebinar. Oh, here's another one. Let's see. So Steven's wondering, is this the right form to ask about the LCB wrapping other languages? No, I would ask that. I'd go over to Reddit. So Steven, if there's a link to Reddit where Peter is, and I posted that in the chat window. And just so you see, here's what the page. I'll show you what the page looks like. This is the Reddit page, and Peter's answering questions there. Okay, and so you can go there and ask him questions, and that would be the place about wrapping other languages. The answer is right now you can't, except for C. You can wrap C, but you can't do Objective-C and you can't do Java. But if you want to flesh that out with Peter, you can do that on Reddit or in Slack. All right, now I'm to the end. Oh, there's more now. All right, Scott, and I'm happy to keep going. So if you still have more questions, then go for it. I've got a little more time before I'll have to sign off. But is the Atom editor set up to be used with LCB straightforward? Is there a doc somewhere? It is straightforward. It is an extension. So if you open up Atom, and so I put all, so you can just open a folder in Atom. I have an LC modules folder here where I stick all my stuff. And then I have another folder. Here's my folder that's the public stuff. LiveCode extensions. And so then you can just kind of move through everything. You can kind of see I'm messing around with a data view idea here, but it's still very early and nothing to show for it. But if you go to preferences, you can look for packages. And so, you search for LiveCode and language LiveCode, and you can get that. So the package is available from, okay, Peter asked to show standalone settings for including widgets. I can do that. And so you just install this community package because it's available from it's available through Atom. Like Peter has submitted it, and it shows up, and it's something you can install through the Atom interface. So it's pretty cool. The only thing I don't think we get, let's see, was it optional? No, it's not. Command R. Yeah, we don't have. You don't get a list of functions yet, which I do get in BB-edit. I go back and forth between Atom and BB-edit. I like a lot of stuff about Atom, but I really want to get function or the handlers all listed so that I can quickly navigate to them through Command R. But because LiveCode Builder is not recognized by the whatever library that Atom uses, they don't show up. Now, is there a doc somewhere on setting up Atom? I think there is in the LiveCode repository, but let's see, livecode.com, no. LiveCode. Let's see if it's in here. Search. Yeah, these are the instructions, so I'll put there's not much there, but to add LiveCode Builder support to the Atom editor, install language LiveCode package from the Atom settings pane. So that's, basically what I showed you. There's not much to it. So Jeremy asks, is there a place, actually no, before I do Jeremy's question, Peter asked me to show how you include widgets that you build. So what you do is you go in, let's do this, let's create a new stack, and it's going to want me to save. For some reason on my computer, the open dialog takes a really long time with LiveCode. And it's just on this computer. It doesn't do it on my other computer. I have no idea why. It's not a general issue, but I guess this computer is just special. Which is odd, because this is my fastest computer as well. It must be some kind of network setting. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go to the desktop. So when you go into your standalone application settings, if you want to include widgets with your standalone that you build, you go to the copy files pane, and these are all the widgets that are installed. And so you just go through and you use Command or Shift to select the widgets that you want. I would really, really like to see LiveCode turn these into checkboxes, because it's not readily apparent what you're supposed to do here. And the first time you do it, you're like, huh? I would like to have checkboxes be there. But that is how you do it. And then when you go to build your standalone, LiveCode will include the widgets that you need, and I think it loads them up in the correct order too, so that you don't have any dependency issues. And it's magic.